This was regarded at the time as conjecture, a guess. However, currently, an increasing number of factors suggest that this guess might have been accurate. These days, it is impossible to ignore the new material being published by prominent international media publications like the Financial Times and Haaretz. Israeli intelligence agency Mossad claims that Iran has not only successfully maintained its nuclear program, but has also nearly produced its first atomic weapon. The timescale is only a few weeks, if not days, according to insiders. Diplomatic insiders warily discuss a critical period and an irrevocable step that Iran could take at any time behind the scenes at the UN, an especially concerning point. The same sources claim that Russia provided Throne with assistance on the project. Allegedly, a large team of experts and engineers was dispatched to Iran to provide guidance on storage systems, enrichment, and centrifuges. Of course, official Moscow disputes these charges, claiming they are nothing more than misinformation. However, there are many in American and Israeli circles who believe that Iran could not have swiftly regained its capability without outside help. This time, it is noteworthy that the United States and Israel's response differs greatly from earlier instances. Previously, Tel Aviv would plot strikes within a day, following the initial Iranian progress reports. However, there aren't any loud movements today. According to specialists in the Israeli press, especially the Jerusalem Post, Netanyahu's administration does not rule out Thrawn's manipulation. Iran might be purposefully circulating reports of a nearly completed bomb in order to scare the area and serve as a deterrence. In information wars, this strategy has been employed frequently, compelling the adversary to expend resources and emotions on a threat whose validity is nevertheless query. However, a growing number of worrying indications suggest that this is not a bluff. Iran has escalated its rhetoric in recent weeks, which has further exacerbated the issue. New missile tests were shown on state media, and analysts say the missiles can carry any payload over 2,000 kilometers. Additionally, while nuclear warheads aren't specifically mentioned, the implication is more than clear. No global force will compel Iran to give up its right to develop nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, according to Thrawn. However, a growing number of people perceive this slogan as an effort to justify a move toward the military application of nuclear technology. The Washington Post and New York Times have reported that Washington is currently experiencing internal strife. A few of Donald Trump's advisors want an urgent military action, additional attacks, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and the elimination of potential storage locations. Conversely, others cautioned that a new attack might spark a full-scale conflict throughout the Middle East. This brings us to the crucial query. What will Trump say? The U.S. president enjoys portraying himself as harsh, particularly on election eve. However, global security is at risk, not simply reputation. Will he choose to wage a full-scale conflict against a nation that some analysts from the Brookings Institution and the RAND Corporation believe may obtain nuclear weapons as soon as tomorrow? Or will he choose to overlook the danger in the hopes that it remains a component of Thrawn's psychological manipulation? Meanwhile, Channel 12 claims that Israel has increased communication with Saudi Arabia, as well as the United Arab Emirates, preparing a regional alliance in the event that Iran actually develops nuclear weapons is the aim. A fresh Middle Eastern issue that has the potential to drastically alter the balance of power is being discussed behind closed doors. But as of yet, no direct military action has been taken, which appears to be rather rare for the area. A contradictory situation is so developing. On the one hand, Iranian nuclear readiness is being expressed more and more by international intelligence. However, the major players who often respond right away are currently keeping quiet. Since there are only two possible outcomes, this silence is more disturbing than any strikes or sanctions. Either Israel and the United States don't think the threat is that serious, or they are getting ready for a more significant operation, the extent and ramifications of which remain uncertain. The climate surrounding Iran is growing more strained in light of these rumors, leaks, and publications. Every fresh official declaration and article in prestigious Western magazines just serves to stoke the flames, and the entire world is holding its breath as the likelihood that the Islamic Republic will acquire nuclear weapons is becoming less and less doubtful, waiting to see if Donald Trump will act decisively or just say things aloud. and this will be a moment that permanently alters the geopolitical landscape if Iran does indeed declare that it possesses its first nuclear bomb. In light of this, China's contribution should not be undervalued. Beijing calls for peace and diplomacy while formally maintaining its neutrality. However, South China Morning Post experts dispute that the main source of Thrawn's economic survival in recent years was China. Iran got around sanctions by using Chinese banks and businesses. Additionally, it collected billions of dollars through collaborative energy projects that, analysts say, might have been used to fund the nuclear program. Even if there isn't any concrete proof of technology transfer, Washington is certain that Iran would have had a far harder time surviving without the Chinese influence. The alternatives for how events might unfold are more concerning by the moment. The world has a few choices if Iran is prepared to declare its first bomb. The first is a preemptive strike by the US and Israel that destroys centrifuges and storage facilities. War between Thrawn's supporters, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shiite organizations in Iraq, and perhaps even the Houthis in Yemen would result instantly from this. The second possibility is that, like with nuclear-armed North Korea or Pakistan, the world attempts to accept the current state of affairs. However, under such scenario, the Middle East's power dynamics would irrevocably shift. A new arms race would begin when Saudi Arabia and Turkey started their own nuclear programs. The third scenario is a last-minute diplomatic agreement, whereby Iran consents to the removal of some sanctions in exchange for freezing its program. But as Carnegie Endowment for International Peace researchers point out, there is very little chance of a settlement because confidence between the West and Thrawn has long been shattered. For this reason, every fresh story in Western media and every leak from the Pentagon or Mossad is interpreted as a harbinger of impending disaster. The world must make a decision. The world must make a decision. Either to accept that humanity has arrived at the brink of a world war or to think that Iran is bluffing. New nuclear power is prepared to exert pressure with this status. Additionally, the longer Washington and Tel Aviv stay mute, the more people worldwide, including politicians, specialists, and regular citizens, become curious. We might hear the response in the upcoming weeks, and it could decide the Middle East's future.